The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, this is Steve Namaseevayum. I'm the Senior Global Director for iPass's Supplier Relationship Management team. Today I'll be giving you the Q3 2017 update on our Wi-Fi network. In terms of questions, we'll be taking those at the end, so feel free to submit those via the question or the chat functionality. So I'll get started. The presentation will also be made available to you if you're participating, and we'll jump in. Okay, so just to start with, we wanted to run through some definitions or some categorizations of hotspots. First and foremost, I think it's important to say that iPass counts individual locations as a hotspot. We're not referring to access points. So if you take, say for example, a hotel or an airport that will have hundreds of access points inside the building, we consider that to be one location. And then just drilling down in terms of the different types of hotspots, we have three different types inside of our network. Commercial hotspots, which are typically public spaces, so something along the lines of an airport, hotel, airplane. Community hotspots are hotspots within somebody's homes that have been opened up for roaming access. So typically what you'll find is that the piece of equipment, the access point inside the home, has two signals being broadcast, SSIDs as they're called. One is for the homeowner's use. The second is for what we call for roaming access for members of the public to use as well. So that is where, in these instances, iPass has access to the second signal, to the second SSID, and that is they become part of our network. And then finally, we have this categorization called open access. So within the iPass technology, Smart Connect, we have the ability to curate free amenity hotspots into our service offering. So that is also a part of extended footprint that we're able to make available to you. Okay. Moving forward, I just wanted to share with you how we're tracking our hotspot growth over the last 3.5 years. So you can see where we were in 2014, barely over 2 million hotspots, and today we're publicizing 63 million hotspots. Okay. And then just by region, in various continents, you can see where those hotspots are. So in the Americas, we're over 22 million hotspots now. In Europe, it's our largest region, nearly 23.5 million. You can see where we are in Asia, Africa, and Australia and Oceania as well. Okay, and we're now present in more than 180 countries around the world. And next, I'd like to talk about the different vertical types. I think it's important, whilst we talk about a number, to share with you, where we are in terms of different vertical types like airports and trains and so on. So you can see today that iPass is present throughout more than 800 airports globally. When it comes to in-flight Wi-Fi, iPass is enabled on more than 3,000 planes today. Train Wi-Fi is also an important part of our service. We've been offering connectivity inside trains for close to 10 years now, sort of similar time frame to in-flight Wi-Fi. And we'll go into some of the brands that we're working with in a couple of slides' time as well. And then local businesses, small medium businesses as well. So it's around 20 million plus hotspots. And then hospitality. This is a very important vertical to iPass. Again, we'll talk about this more in a slide or two. But this drives a lot of usage for our users and is very valuable to our customers. And then community hotspots. So these are the residential hotspots. We're now in excess of 38 million globally. So I mentioned in-flight Wi-Fi. We've been supported on various airlines probably for close to 10 years now. Our first relationship was through one of the companies that you can see along the bottom, GoGo. They're headquartered in Chicago. And they work with a lot of the leading airlines, so fortunately, we're able to have a partnership with them, and we are enabled on a lot of the airline carriers that you can see on this slide. Similarly for Panasonic, we also are enabled on United. We publicized our deal with United Airlines last year. Whilst we were already enabled on a lot of United Airlines fleet or planes, we are doing a further rollout through a direct relationship we have with them as well. So you can see it here. So working with 20 plus leading airline carriers and on more than 3,000 planes. Hospitality, I mentioned, is an extremely important vertical to iPass. So here you can see the brands that we work with. So when we look at this slide, it's important to note, we aren't enabled on every single hotel inside of all of these brands, partly because they're the technology vendors that they work with. They have many of them, so really it's to date the way in which iPass has been working with these brands has been through the systems integrator relationships, getting enabled that way. Okay. And trains as well. Again, this is one of the verticals that we have seen growing rapidly over the last 10 years. We're putting some focus on this area. So you can see in Japan we're enabled on some of the trains there, the bullet trains in Denmark, across the UK, the Heathrow Express, as well as Virgin East Midlands and Arriva cross country. Okay. And then, iPass, in case you don't know this, but iPass is not a physical network infrastructure provider. We don't go out and build Wi-Fi networks. What we do is actually we partner with carriers and other types of systems integrators so that we had the rights to roam onto their Wi-Fi networks. So here is just an example of some of the key carriers and brands that we work with across the continents as well. Okay. So switching tracks, I've today so far just talked about what we have. I want to talk a little bit about the what's coming in terms of our network expansion plans. So my team is responsible for the existing relationships, our existing providers, but we're also responsible for bringing on new and interesting footprint. So this first slide that you can see here is just really focusing on Inflight. This has become an extremely important area, for us. Our customers find it a very, very valuable service. The business that we do with the partners that I showed earlier, like GoGo and Panasonic and United, has grown significantly over the last few years. And we're trying to expand it more. So we have a few things going on throughout Europe. We're working hard to bring the first short-haul fleet on board. In the US, I mentioned our partnership with United Airlines that we signed last year. That's currently in the technical integration process, and we're targeting trying to start the deployment for 700 planes this year as well. And then we also have other prospects around the globe, deals that we're working on for the Americas, in Australia and Oceania, in Asia as well, where we're trying to expand this footprint. I think it would be fair to say that from a regional perspective, if you look at the maturity of in-flight Wi-Fi, the Americas, and probably specifically the US, was probably the first market to embrace in-flight Wi-Fi, partly because basically the technology required for trying to put in-flight Wi-Fi in the US specifically meant that you could leverage existing air-to-ground technology, whereas when you're into the more international stuff and you're over water, you're having to look at satellite, and that's been a little bit more challenging, I believe, for some of the systems integrators and the airline carriers. Okay, but it seems like it's over the last couple of years, the other markets have started to catch up. So as an example of this today, for example, is iPass is enabled on airline carriers in the Middle East and in Asia, and on long-haul flights such as Lufthansa as well. Taking a bit more of a regional focus, I'll talk first about EMEA. So I mentioned earlier about the community hotspots that we do have already. It numbers around 38 million. We are focused on trying to increase that number. We do find the community Wi-Fi can be a valuable form of access for our customers. I think especially in places where you've got large cities like Paris or London, and this sort of blanket effect of community Wi-Fi, that it does become extremely useful to our users when they come across these types of hotspots. Okay. And a rail footprint, again, I talked about that earlier. We are trying to work with some of the train operating companies in Europe. We do have some agreements to proceed with some of the largest train operating companies as well. So we're going through that process right now of trying to get into finalized contracts and then start to work out the integration plans. Okay, Inflight I've mentioned, but certainly I think probably the most exciting thing about this is that we are engaged on trying to get the first short haul Inflights in Europe launched this year as well. And next I'll talk a bit about Asia. So we have been focusing our attentions this year on a couple of various markets, China and Hong Kong, trying to add some big numbers inside China with one of the carriers there, as well as in Hong Kong. India has also been a relevant market for us. We've historically, if you go back more than a year, India has been a problematic area for us to actually grow hotspots. We found the technology, the regulatory environment has been relatively fragmented. The carriers have not embarked on a sort of mass rollout of commercial good public Wi-Fi. Good news is we think that's changing. We've been successful this year in working with some of our existing providers in and around things like airports and hotels to increase their footprint and improve their performance. We've also been able to sign a couple of new partners, some of the tier 1 carriers that are now starting to take Wi-Fi seriously and embark on mass rollout. So we expect that, based on the forecast that they've given us, that this footprint will continue to increase as they expand their networks. And then we also have a couple of other prospective network suppliers that we're working on, tier 1 carriers too. Okay. And then just the final piece for us in Asia is around Southeast Asia, Australia, and Oceania. So this year we've been able to launch a new network partner in Australia for more than around 1,200 strategic hotspots in high footfall areas in that market. So again, Australia's been a difficult spot for iPass, and trying to add good commercial Wi-Fi. I mean, we take what we put into the network very seriously in terms of having to meet certain technical standards and quality standards, and trying to sort of find that supply has been a challenge for us, but we've been fortunate to find a good partner this year, and as I said, they are launched, and they plan to expand as well. We have some other things. In fact, it's worth calling out our hospitality footprint in Australia. We tend to have pretty good penetration in what I call the tier 1 brands, hotels as well. Okay. And then in Singapore, we very recently added several thousand hotspots. Singapore has been through a bit of a turbulent time in terms of Wi-Fi expansion with a government initiative. We've had to basically sort of recover and respond to that initiative, but actually it's starting to take shape. So we've fortunately partnered up with the largest operator in the country, and have recently launched it's about 4,000 hotspots. finally, I'll talk a bit about the Americas. So in terms of Central and Latin America, this year, what we've been able to achieve, let's say, we've been able to actually sign up a new carrier in Mexico. Currently they're in deployment. They do have strategic hotspots in airports and in hospitality as well. So, we're looking to basically roll them out this year. We'll also be basically, and we have been engaging with carriers down in Brazil and in Argentina. In fact, we'll be in Brazil in a few weeks' time, talking with some of those carriers to see if basically we can get their footprints as well. And then Argentina will be the next one. Okay, so we've identified targets in Argentina and have had some engagements with those carriers as well. It's now just basically trying to see if we can convert and get agreements with those guys as well. Canada has also been a target area for us in the Americas. In fact, good news, recently we were able to sign a tier 1 hospitality carrier that has several hundred hotels. So, the deal is signed, and next we'll be sort of moving into the integration phase with them as well. And then outside of that, we have been in discussion with a tier 1 carrier in Canada. I believe where we'll end up is an agreement this year, maybe the first part of next year, and then be able to move into the integration next year. They do have quite a large number of hotspots in the thousands as well. Okay, and then as far as the US is concerned, I mentioned Inflight and what we're doing with United. We do have another prospect there as well that has several hundred contracted aircraft for a tier 1 American airline carrier. So that's the impetus behind that particular partnership that we've got coming along. Hospitality, we're working on some stuff with the tier 1 brands directly as well as indirectly through some of the systems integrator partners. So that is essentially where this year we're putting a lot of focus on. Okay, so just to finish, in terms of, I've summarized here our network, what it comprises, numbers of the coverage and so on. What we do when we talk about our network, if you look at the iPass strategy, it's three-pronged. So we essentially offer an unlimited service, so you can basically use as much data, time, whatever devices as you want. And the bit that the network supports is trying to be everywhere. So whether that's our commercial networks, our community networks, our open access curated networks, essentially when we talk about everywhere, that's what we're trying to be. And then our technology, Smart Connect, is really what basically is behind our invisible strategy as well. So basically trying to create that best experience to connect to hotspots, through our technology, as well as roam between hotspots in a way that users want to connect. Okay. And just a bit on iPass, so in case you don't know, but we are a public company. We are listed on NASDAQ since 2003. We were founded in '96. We are headquartered in Silicon Valley, Northern California, in a place called Redwood City. And from a technology standard, as I mentioned, our platform is called iPass Smart Connect. It has the connection technology. It has the network, as I've talked about here. It has an analytics capability. And, we place a lot of time, pride on our technology. And to date, we've listed 40 plus patents. Okay. So I believe that brings us to the end. Again, if you for participants today, you'll be sent a copy of the presentation. And if you have any questions, you can contact your iPass account manager if you're an existing customer or partner, or if you would like to talk about a potential partnership, you can email sales@ipass.com. Okay. So thank you very much for your time. I believe we'll now open up for questions. So feel free to submit those via the chat question feature. Hi Alex, have any questions come through?
Nothing's popped up just yet.
Okay. Let's give it a minute or two and then.
Sean Lee asked you to talk about the new hotspot finder.
Okay, so I'll be honest here, I'm not a particular expert on the hotspot finder, so I think it's probably best to get one of our product managers or product marketing involved on that one. So can we take Sean's contact details and arrange a follow-up with him?
Sure.
Anything else? Anyone else?
Not yet, no. Another question from Sean. Which big networks are not on iPass yet?
Good question. I mean, iPass has been doing this since 2001 in terms of broadband technologies and Wi-Fi networks. If I look around the globe and the way in which we actually approach our network acquisition strategy, we tend to look at, okay, where are the strategic markets? What are the strategic verticals? Where do we believe our customers will go to? I don't think it's actually any one particular carrier that we're missing inside any of those key markets for us or our customers to that effect. I think where basically we have to plug holes in strategic markets are, for example, in some of the things I've mentioned. If you look at and I'm being honest and open here, the US, we need more hotels, more hospitality footprint in those markets. And then we have in-flight Wi-Fi connectivity as well, still in the US, that we need to plug. So, for example, getting the United Airlines integration done is important to us. Another one of the major tier 1 carriers, American Airlines, will in 2018 probably, and this is public, will be starting to roll out several hundred jets or aircraft with in-flight connectivity. So that will be important for us to have as well. So that's my take in the US. I think I mentioned in Canada, and I can't give or share names at this point, but they're the tier 1 carrier that we would like to have part of our network, and that's progressing. Down in Brazil as well, there's another tier 1 carrier. Again, I can't share names just from a confidentiality NDA perspective, but that's another one we would like to have, similar for Argentina. And then if you come to Europe, I think I mentioned this already, the community Wi-Fi. We are targeting one significant conglomerate, adding that to our footprint, which will net around 10 million additional community Wi-Fi hotspots. And then, yes, I think essentially, train Wi-Fi as well. So some of the leading train operating companies in Germany, in the UK, and across Europe on a pan-European train operating company, let's say, is another one that we would like to have. So 2 or 3 there that we're missing would make a strategic contribution towards our coverage. Okay.
Got one more from Kevin Lyman. He asked, what type of companies are you partnering with for the new EU Wi-Fi grant for public Wi-Fi? How will you get involved?
Yeah, so we've seen the news around the grants. To us, we're still waiting to figure out what that means for us, because, and we've spoken with some of our partners about this as well. I think essentially we have to wait, and we have to see basically what happened with those grants, what will happen in terms of the process for that money to get allocated, and then what it means for us. We don't know, for example, if some of that footprint is curatable, and if we can basically bring it in that way, or if we need to go and sign agreements. I think part of it will also be when it rolls out, where is that footprint going to be? Are those strategic markets for iPass that we need to go and get involved in? Are they strategic venues that we need to have in our footprint as well? So it's a bit of wait and see, and then we can assess whether that's something that's going to be of value to us, and then we would formulate a plan around that.
And then one question from Sean. When will United be available?
So United Airlines is actually it's been an integration this year. The functionality for iPass today is supported on a number of the aircraft already. What we're having to do is basically sort out some of the other technical stuff in the background, for example, that enable billing. So that is something that we are trying to figure out right now with United. With just being open here, with the recent issues in Florida and the earthquakes, we've been set back a little bit. People being out of pocket, understandably so. So we're trying to get back with the United team to figure out what the plan is to finish the integration. So my forecast right now will be we'll be able to probably put this into the start of Q4 and start to roll out planes, and it will probably extend into 2018 by the time we've actually finished the gradual rollout as well. Since United works with several systems integrator partners, we have to work through each of those systems integrators partners to get the planes on board. But yeah, I would forecast we'll start to roll out a couple of hundred planes in Q4.
No more questions right now.
Okay. Okay. Has anything come through, Alex?
Nope.
So, well, thank you again, everyone. You know where we are. If there are any other questions, or if you want to contact iPass, please do not hesitate to do so. But thank you for your time today.